Yo, welcome guys to another faction guide. This time we are going to take a closer look on the Greenskins. I really felt it's time to do a Greenskin guide now, in particular because they are really an important faction and meanwhile a very strong faction, especially since game 2. My faction guide series is actually running very well, so give me the chance to say thank you. I really see it's worth the effort. I'm really happy with that, and I also get a lot of really good constructive criticism and tips to improve my guides. So I will do my best to provide you guys, for example in this guide over here, more tactical information, and I always try to improve my stuff, my videos, my quality whatsoever. So let's start over here with the strengths and the weaknesses. As always, directly after that we are going to take a closer look on the complete army roster, but as I said, I will go more will provide you guys more tactical information, especially in this part, not just the dry information about the stats. After the unit roster we are going to I'm going to show you some competitive builds, and yeah, give me a thumb up, give me a like, give me a comment. I'm always open for constructive criticism, and yeah, sub to this channel and let's start. So let's start directly with the strength of the Greenskins, and let's begin with the most important point in my opinion, and that is the high damage output. So this faction is well known for the high damage output. We have a lot of damage dealer units and a lot of good ones, and therefore in my opinion this is the strongest characteristic and probably the most significant point on the Greenskins. Another really important point is of course that the Greenskins are able to bring large numbers to the battlefield, because the units are on average quite cheap or payable, whatever you would like to call it, and therefore you are really able to bring large numbers of units to the battlefield, and this is of course always for many reasons a big advantage. Another quite good characteristic is of course that the Greenskins have a quite good mobility, and that means also quite good kite units, harass units and all that stuff with a lot of speed. It's very difficult for many factions to catch or to get this under control, and this is of course a quite significant point because you have also support from good missile cavalry units and stuff, and yeah, this is a positive point over here. The next very good point really results out of the other good points, and this is of course the fact that the Greenskins are really able to play with a lot of tactics. As I already said, we have kite units, we have a good mobility, we have a high damage output, you can bring them in large numbers, and that opens of course all possibilities for many different tactics, and many different tactics always mean to have a good variety in gameplay, and that is very difficult for many of your opponents to handle that. Another really good characteristic or a good point is that the Greenskins have a very good unit selection. We have a very nearly all arms of service are really well stocked. We have a huge amount of infantry units, of cavalry units and missile cavalry units, and for that reason also these arms of service are very good. We have a very good missile cavalry or infantry, and this is of course a very good point. Also we have a very good selection out of different lords, also the lord selection out of different types of lords also, you can say, is really good over here. But where's light there's shadow, so let's talk about the cons over here. So let's start with the most significant point on the side of the disadvantages. But this is not so easy for me to explain, because I don't like the term or the definition of a low tier faction, because there is no low tier faction in this game available. But if we take a closer look on the greenskin units, we can clearly see that the most units have an average or quite low amount of leadership. And this is exactly what I usually call a low tier faction, because many units will start to rout very fast, terror rout will kick in many times, spots on your front line will break up very easy, you will get fear punishment. So it's very micromanagement intense. You always have to return routing units to the battlefield, and this is very, very difficult. And it's difficult to control your complete army corps, especially because you have many units on the battlefield usually. And this means the Greenskins are probably a faction that is more suitable to be played by advanced players, because it's, as I said, not so easy to control and hard to play, especially because of the low leadership of the units. The next point is the fact that we have a very bad access to magic, so we have just two magical wars available, the big war and the little war. So this is everything. We have the big war is the more competitive one in my opinion, but also the little war is not bad, but even though there's no other magic available, and this is of course in some cases a disadvantage regarding other factions. Really, as our own point, you can say that the most greenskin units are not so elite. We have not so many elite units available, and most of them are very low on armor. We have a huge amount of damage dealer units available, but as I said, not so much elite units. So the quality overall of each unit for itself is not the best. We have, as I said, a huge damage output in combination with large numbers, and this is what makes the Greenskins so strong, but definitely not the quality of each unit for itself, besides some exceptions of course. The next point is, even if we have a good unit selection overall and also good lords available, we have a very small hero selection. We have the Goblin Big Boss, and this is a quite good hero. We have two Sorcerer, but overall is the unit selection quite small. Another really outstanding point is the fact that the Greenskins have definitely never the aerial threat, because they, except for Azak the Slaughter on his Skullmuncher, what is a Wyvern, and the Orc Warboss on his Wyvern, there are no flying units available, and that means of course they are very weak in when it comes to fights in the air against other heroes, lords or monsters, and this is a quite significant point and worth to be mentioned. But besides from that, I haven't found any other outstanding points, either on the pro side or on the con side. So let's continue here with the lords. Then we are going to take a look on the heroes, infantry, and so on. And after that, as I already promised, I'm going to show you some competitive builds. So let's start over here. So let's start with the cheapest lord on the roster, the Night Goblin Warboss, and he is a melee expert and he is causing poison attacks. His melee defense is 53, what is quite good. The weapon strength overall is 400, it's okay, and his amount of AP damage on foot is just 140, what is not really much for a lord. As I already mentioned, he causing poison attack, what is always quite good. He has a silver shield, but he has a very low amount of armor of 25. On foot, however, the price is about 800 credits. It depends how many abilities you will enable. But the best use is of course to sit him on his great cave squig. That will increase the hit points a lot and the amount of armor by 30. Therefore he has just a bronze shield, but anyway he's then a melee expert and an anti-infantry expert, so he will also get a bonus versus infantry of 40, what is quite a lot of stuff. And also the amount of AP damage on his mount will increase a lot, so we have overall 260 then, what is very good. On his mount, however, the price is still quite cheap with about 1200 credits. He has a ability called Spite of the Bad Moon that will increase the missile parry by 48, and he has expert charge defense then. Then he has an item called Tormentor Sword that will decrease the amount of melee attack by 26 around a range of 30 meters, and yeah, his enemies cannot move. Quite interesting over here. So in some cases, in my opinion, he's really worth the pick because he's very cheap, and on his squig he is a anti-infantry melee expert. However, on foot he is too weak to challenge other lords or heroes, and without his mount he is losing his anti-infantry bonus, so always bring him on his mount. And on his mount he's also very cheap, and in some cases, if you want to save money, he's really a competitive pick. Worth to be mentioned is that the Night Goblin Warboss has a missile resistance of 15%. So let's come to the next lord, the Orc Warboss, and he's also a cheap option as a non-legendary lord. You can say the Orcish version. For about 1100 credits you can deploy him on foot. It depends how many abilities and items you will enable, but he has no special things over here, just Foe Seeker and War on the ability side and some mediocre items, nothing special over here. His weapon strength on foot is 450, what is quite good for that price. The amount of AP damage is 170, this is okay. The melee defense is 46, this is good. The melee attack 58, what is quite good. And he has an amount of armor of 70, and this is for the Greenskins a quite good amount. He has a bronze shield and a missile resistance of 15%, but the most important thing over here are his mounts. He has two mounts available. One is his Warboar. His hit points will increase dramatically by 477, but besides from that, nothing special. But more interesting is his Wyvern. You have he's a flying lord, then you have a lot of mobility. The hit points over here will also increase dramatically by nearly 1000. His weapon strength is then 470, but the most important point is that he has an AP damage then of 300, and this is very good. And he will cause also poison attacks. Therefore the melee defense and the melee attack will decrease a little bit, but he will cause fear and terror on the Wyvern, what is quite good. The missile resistance is 25%, but besides from that, nothing more to talk about. On his Wyvern, he's in my opinion a competitive pick, even if he is on his Wyvern not that cheap. The price overall is about 1800 credits, but in some cases still worth the pick. So let's talk about the next non-legendary lord, the Goblin Great Shaman, and he's a sorcerer, and he's able to use the Little War with spells like Curse of the Bad Moon or Itchy Nuisance, what are really quite good spells. But besides from that, no special abilities, some mediocre abilities, mediocre items. But he is able to sit on a giant wolf, what is quite interesting because his speed will increase, of course, dramatically with an amount of nearly 100, then 92 in fact. But besides from that, nothing special. He has a weapon strength of 280, the AP damage is 80, 26 melee defense, 24 melee attacks, or everything complete garbage. He's definitely not designed to fight in melee combat. It's always worth to spend more money on Wurzak or Azak the Slaughter, or if you pick a melee expert, and then you can pick from the heroes a Night Goblin Shaman, for example, or Orc Shaman. I would say the Goblin Great Shaman is never worth the pick, because he's in melee combat complete garbage. As I said, he's just using the little war, not the big war, and for that reason Wurzak or Azak, even if they are more expensive, is always preferable, because the price of the Goblin Great Shaman is also not so cheap. 1,400, 1,300 credits. It depends how many spells you will enable, but it's not so efficient. So take Wurzak or Azak, or one from the heroes, the Night Shaman or the Orc Shaman. So let's come to the first legendary lord, and a quite unique character, Skarsnik, with his partner Gobbler. So this is not his mount, this is his partner Gobbler. Both are fighting in melee combat. Skarsnik and Gobbler are anti-large. He's an anti-large lord. He has a bonus versus large of 30, and the amount of armor piercing damage with 275 is also very good. We have a weapon strength overall of 390, what is not so much. But as I said, the bonus and the AP damage are very good. The melee defense of 55 is really good. We have a melee attack of 48, also very good. He causing poison attacks, what is also quite interesting. The amount of armor therefore is quite low. The missile resistance is 15%. He has some good abilities with Trixie Traps that will give him stalk, and he's unspottable, and that will increase his speed by 24%. He has also Spider of the Bad Moon, but besides from that, nothing special. He has a legendary item, or a quite unique item, Skarsnik's Brother. He will shoot a shrapnel on enemies that will cause a powerful explosion. Quite interesting also here. And besides from that, he has also a charge defense against large. So he's overall an anti-large lord, but in my opinion he's also doing very well in melee combat against infantry units. I'm not sure why this is. My feeling is that the amount of splash damage is quite good, because you have a quite good combination with Gobbler. So this tag team over here, you can say, is doing very well even in enemy infantry ranks. So you can say this is a hybrid lord. He's doing very well against large target because of his anti-large bonus, and fighting superior also in enemy infantry ranks. And we also don't have to forget, against large targets he's doing very well, because he is a very steady target. He is not flying around or away if he get hit by a Kolek or stuff like that. He's very stable, and this is very good, especially when it comes to fights against large entities, not only because of the anti-large bonus. So the price is 1,700 or 1,800 credits. It depends on the abilities or items you would like to enable, and in some cases it's really worth to bring Skarsnik, even if I say don't expect any wonders. Cost the performance overall could be a bit better, but for that price he is at least cost efficient, and in some cases really worth to be brought to the battlefield. So let's come to Grimgor Ironhide, and Grimgor Ironhide is a mighty melee expert. He has a weapon strength of 500, and this is really superior in the Warhammer universe. The amount of AP damage for 350 is also superior. The melee attack for 70 is incredible. It's on the same level like Tyrion and stuff. The melee defense with 45 is okay, is good. We have he's very heavily armored with 120. He has a missile resistance of 15%, and he is immune to psychology. He has not really good abilities, very low tier, you can say, just Foe Seeker, Stand Your Ground, and War. But he has a quite good item, Gitsnik, that will increase the melee attack by 26 and the amount of AP armor piercing damage by 40%. So this is in the most cases the only useful thing that you should enable. So overall nothing more to say with Gitsnik enabled. The price is about 1,600 credits. So as I said, he's in the most cases preferable to Skarsnik, because he's in the same price range. Even if Grimgor is not anti-large, but he has superior stats all over the place, so it doesn't matter. The only disadvantage on Grimgor is, of course, like on many other lords, for example on the Dawi roster, that he is quite squishy. If he gets hit by a large entity, he will fly around, so he's in many fights not able to place one hit after another, and this is a problem. He's not steady. But against other lords, small entities and stuff, he's really good. But also, of course, if you have to face against a giant or other alcoholic or stuff like that, he can cause a quite good amount of damage. But as I said, against large entities in most cases he's quite squishy, and this is the only problem over here. He's one of the mightiest melee experts in the game when it comes to a single entity non-monster lord, because of his really superior stats. So in some cases, or in many cases, it's worth to bring him to the battlefield, because you have, as I said, a mighty melee expert, and he is meanwhile quite cheap. So let's talk about Wurzak, and Wurzak is, in my opinion, one of the most competitive picks on the roster, because he is a mighty spellcaster. You can sit him on Spleen Ripper, his legendary boar, on which he has much more hit points, and he has a quite good amount of speed. Then he is able to cast spells from the big war, so for example Foot of Quark, what is superior, or Gaze of Morg, or Irigo. All these very good spells, he's able to cast them. He has some good items also, Bonewood Staff, that will trigger when you're casting spells and will increase the melee attack by 13 and the charge bonus by 18%, for example. And also very good abilities, for example Evergy of the Git, that will fix one of your enemies, a lord or a hero. He is stuck then, so you can attack him, and that will interrupt your enemy from fleeing or stuff like that. It's a very good ability in my opinion. And then we have, for example, Warpaint of Wurzak, that will increase the physical resistance by 6% constantly. The melee stats overall are not bad for a spellcaster. The weapon strength is 340. The amount of AP damage is 95. It's complete garbage. Also the melee defense with 25. This is horrific. But therefore the melee attack with 43 is quite okay. The amount of armor is very low, so it's definitely not a melee expert. But when it comes to finish off some already damaged other lords or heroes or monsters, the weapon strength of 340 can really pay off then. He has a physical resistance of 25%, but it's also quite good, so it's not so easy to kill him. Even if on his boar he is a quite steady target, and for a spellcaster that means with monsters and other lords it's very easy to kill him then, because he's not flying around, he don't get a timeout when he's on the ground. So be careful. In some cases it's probably better to bring him on foot. But overall is Wurzak really a very good lord and a quite competitive pick, even if he's quite expensive. The price is about, it depends if you bring him on Spleen Ripper or on foot, but the price is about 2000 credits. So I would say he is the most competitive pick directly after Arzak the Slaughter when it comes to the lords. In my personal opinion, he's my favorite lord on the Greenskin roster. I always prefer Wurzak before Arzak, but this is my personal opinion. In the most cases is Arzak the Slaughterer the more popular pick, you can say. So let's come to Arzak the Slaughterer. As I said, he is probably the most competitive pick, also the most expensive one. On his Wyvern Skullmuncher, the price is about 2800 credits. It depends on how many spells you enable. As always, he has some mediocre abilities, nothing really special. He can increase the leadership by 8 constantly if you enable Get On Wife It, but besides from that, nothing special. But he is able to cast spells from the Law of Death, and that makes him so mighty, because you can enable Fate of Buna and Spirit Leech, and in combination with his Wyvern he's also very good in melee combat. So he has a weapon strength overall then of 480, what is quite a lot of stuff the amount of AP damage is 300, then this is very, very good. But the only problem over here is that the melee defense is still very bad with 24, so be very careful. He will get killed quite fast, you can say, because he has nearly no melee defense. The melee attack therefore is quite good with 50. He causing poison attacks on the Wyvern, of course, and he has a quite good amount of armor with 70. On foot, however, the stats are also not bad, but not that good. We have a little bit increased melee attack. We have 60. The weapon strength is 400, what is still quite good for a spellcaster. The amount of AP damage on foot is also quite good with 250. So even on foot the stats are quite good, but of course for many reasons it's preferable to bring Azek on Skullmuncher. You have a good amount of mobility. You can finish off already damaged targets, monsters, but you can also go directly in melee combat against other heroes or lords. But as I said, be careful. I would always just attack or just finish off units, because the melee defense is so low. He is very easy to kill Azek on the ground, even if the damage output is really gigantic. Overall, as I said, the price is on his Skullmuncher about 2,800 credits, so this is very expensive, but you also get a lot of stuff. So in the most cases, Azek is the Slaughterer, is for the most player probably the most competitive pick, especially because he's able to cast spell from the Law of Death. But that's everything from the lords. We have really good lords. I would say there is not really a bad lord available, so no lord that I would say don't pick this lord over here. Every lord has some positive stuff, and at least they are all quite cost efficient. So this is a quite interesting lord roster and really good, and definitely a positive point for the Greenskins. But let's continue now with the heroes. So let's start with the heroes, and let's begin with Goblin Big Boss over here, the most cost efficient hero in the complete game, because for about 400 credits you can deploy him on a Giant Wolf. On a Giant Wolf he's very fast. He has a speed of nearly 192 in fact. You can simply say never deploy him on foot, deploy him always in combination with a mount. The mount is so cheap, so the extra charge for the Giant Wolf is 100. He has then a weapon strength of 360. It's also on foot, but as I said, pick always a mount, because the extra charge is so cheap and you get just advantages over there. The stats overall are mediocre. I wouldn't say they are superior or stuff. We have a weapon strength of 360. The amount of AP damage is 120. Melee defense 48, what is quite good. But the melee attack is 40. The amount of armor is very low with 35. And he has a bronze shield. But even though the price is so cheap, and if you compare the stats to the price, they are really superior. So there is very cost efficient. And you don't have to forget you can pick 2. He's unfortunately restricted to 2 meanwhile. And the first game I always picked 3 Goblin Big Bosses in my Greenskin army, but meanwhile he's unfortunately restricted to 2. And on his Giant Wolf he can cause a lot of trouble, especially in combination with the other one, so always pick 2. And he can cause a lot of damage, and for that price he's really cost efficient. I would never pick the Giant Spider, however, because you only get a little bit more hit points and a little bit more armor, but therefore the speed will reduce. The only advantage of this Giant Spider is that the spider is causing poison attacks, what is in some cases quite good, but just for that reason I wouldn't pick this Giant Spider. On a Giant Spider, however, he's a Strider. Speed and combat penalties caused by terrain are ignored by this, so he can also run very fast in the woods and stuff. So the fact that the Giant Spider causing poison attack and he's a Strider then is quite good. But I would just, as I said, still prefer the Giant Wolf, because he's much faster than. The Goblin Big Boss has a missile resistance of 15%. But nothing more to talk about. He's a really perfect. I love this hero over here. He's so cheap, and for that price the performance is so good. He's a very mighty duelist, especially when it comes to fights against other large entities, single entities. In combination with two, if both are fighting one target, they really damage their target quite a lot, and you will see he's very efficient, even if the stats are mediocre. But for that price, this is superior over here. So let's come to the Night Goblin Shaman, and he is able to cast spells from the Little War. And as I already said, there are some quite good spells in it. For example, Sneaky Stabbing, that will increase the amount of armor piercing damage by 20% and the melee attack by 26%. Then we have Itchy Nuisance. This is quite useful, minus 25% weapon damage and minus 26 melee attack. And for example, we have also Curse of the Bad Moon. Of course, this is quite random, but even though in some cases it can cause a quite good amount of trouble, but it depends. It's definitely not the best Vortex spell, but a quite good spell is Gorg Will Fix It, minus 18% charge bonus, minus 48% speed, and minus 48% charge speed. This is very good. But in any case, the big war is always preferable, and I think this is a little bit the problem over here. You would always prefer to bring an Orc Shaman or Wurzak to the battlefield. In the most cases, you will bring an additional spellcaster hero just if you pick Grimgore or a Orc Warboss or Skaznik. Then it is quite good to, of course, to bring an additional spellcaster, and in this case you always prefer the Orc Shaman because of Foot of Gorg and Here We Go and stuff. So I don't see any point where you pick the Little War, but if you pick it, as I said, Itchy Nuisance is really good, Sneaky Stabbing, and in some cases Curse of the Bad Moon. Also, a big disadvantage over here is the fact that the Night Goblin Shaman is not able to sit on a mount, so you can deploy him just on foot. This is very bad. And also, if you compare the melee combat stats to the Orc Shaman, so I'm a fan of Sorcerer that are also able to do at least some good amount of damage to finish off some units. So if you are in your front line with your spellcaster roaming around and you can see one hero or lord of the enemy is already damaged, you can finish him off if the spellcaster has some good amount of weapon strength. But also here we have just 280, and if you compare the stats to the stats of the Orc Shaman, we have much better stats, much more hit points, much higher weapon strength. So just advantages on the side of the Orc Shaman. So in my opinion, I would never pick the Night Goblin Shaman because of many reasons that I already told you here. So just one good thing over here is the fact that he is causing poison. He has a missile resistance of 15%, but as I said, pick the Orc Shaman. Worth to be mentioned is also that he is able to get deployed in a vanguard position, but also here I don't see any useful tactic for that, so this is, in my opinion, nonsense. So let's talk about the Orc Shaman, and the Orc Shaman is able to sit on a Warboar for 300 credits extra charge, and of course he is much more mobile, then the speed will increase. The weapon strength overall on foot is 310, on the Warboar 260, but therefore the amount of AP damage on the Warboar is 180, what is quite good and much more as on foot. So also the melee attack with 38 is for a spellcaster not bad. The melee defense is just 20, but as I said, to finish off some targets, this can really pay off. So on the Warboar also the amount of armor increases by overall by 55, so plus 25 over here regarding the stats on foot. He has also a missile resistance of 15%, and yeah, we have superior spells over here for the big war, Foot of Gorg for example. Here We Go is very good. Gaze of Morg is quite good to shoot on flying targets in the beginning if you are not able to have some ranged fire or stuff like that. Gaze of Morg can do a good amount of damage against flying units or harass units and stuff. So we have the big war, and the big war is, as I said, preferable, and especially because this hero over here is able to sit on a mount and has much better melee stats. So I would always prefer, as I already said, the Orc Shaman. We have nothing special on the side of the abilities. We have evasion that will increase the melee defense by 5 and the speed by 6% constantly, what is quite good, in fact. But besides from that, nothing special. He's very well designed also to finish off some already damaged targets. As I said, on the warbow, however, he is quite mobile, and if you have picked a Grimgore, a Skarsnik, or Night Goblin Warbos, Orc Warbos, you need magic also, and for this case always pick the Orc Shaman and prefer the Orc Shaman before the Night Goblin Shaman. So let's start with the infantry, and let's begin with the cheapest unit, the goblins. They are not a meat shield, but they are expandable. They have a very poor leadership, therefore they have a silver shield, what is quite good. But we have nearly no armor, nearly no melee attack, nearly no melee defense, and they are also not anti-large. Many think, I think many expect or think that these guys are anti-large because of their spear, but they are in fact not a anti-large unit. They have in fact just a AP damage of 6, what is very bad. So they are overall crap, you can say. As I said, they are expandable, so the leadership of your other units will not drop if these guys are going to rout. So in the most cases, in my opinion, you can leave out the goblins completely, because for 300 credits you get nearly nothing, and in this case, as I said, I would leave them out. So let's come to the Night Goblins, and these guys are also expandable, but these guys causing poison attacks, and they are able to get deployed in a vanguard position. But besides from that, the other stats are not really better than the stats of normal goblins. For example, we have a little bit increased melee attack, a little bit increased weapon strength, but truly just a little. Therefore the amount of armor is reduced. We have -10 regarding the normal goblins. They have also a silver shield, but besides from that, they are also complete crap in melee combat. There is nearly no difference. The only interesting thing is the poison attack in combination with the vanguard deployment, but even for 100 more, it's not worth to bring these guys to the battlefield, because they are not efficient at all. I don't see any task for these guys. As I said, maybe just the poison attacks in combination with the vanguard deployment to have a little bit of ambush or stuff like that, but besides from that, I would leave these guys out. It's not worth to pick them. There is a other version of the Night Goblins available, the Fanatics. For 50 credits more, you get a special ranged attack called the Spinning Loons. I'm right to remember myself that this was in the first game an automatic attack, so during the charge in, some of the goblins came out and throwing this Morning Star against the enemies. Meanwhile, it's a activated ability which you are able to activate 3 times, no matter during the charge in or in other situations, but the best use is of course still during the charge in. And but besides from that, no difference whatsoever regarding the normal Night Goblins, except for this extra charge attack. So I would also leave out these guys. Don't get me wrong, guys, I love the Night Goblins, I love also normal goblins, but in many competitive builds they don't have any place in my opinion, because they will rout off so immediately at the beginning. They are doing really no damage. The charge bonus is complete garbage. I mean, we have 8 on the normal goblins, and then the Night Goblins 12. This is complete garbage. The armor is 15 on the Night Goblins. This is complete garbage for this price. If the price would be 150 or 200, I would say I would recommend to bring them. so you can increase the amount of units in your army dramatically, but the Greenskins are naturally able to do that, so I would say leave out Night Goblins and Goblins at all. So let's talk about the Orc Boys, and the Orc Boys are the first efficient unit on this roster over here, even if they are also count as a low tier unit, but they are also of course cost efficient low tier units around, and for that price the Orc Boys are really good. The price is 450 credits. This is the same price like the Night Goblin Fanatics, or 50 more than the normal Night Goblins, or 150 more than the normal Goblins, but the Orc Boys are always preferable to these Goblins because they have a higher weapon strength. For example, the weapon strength is 34. This is quite good for a low tier unit, even if the other melee stats are not much better than the Goblin stats. The armor is naturally low, like on many other Greenskin units we have just 30, but they have a bronze shield. The leadership is also naturally low, just 60, but overall for 450 credits, this is the best low tier unit of the Greenskins over here, and they are always preferable for the other Goblin units over here, because for 450 credits the stats or the weapon strength is quite good. Don't expect any wonders, but 2 or 3 groups in the front line or stuff like that. As I said, they are shielded, they can protect themselves from arrows, and for this reason, in some cases, to increase the amount of units in your army, the Orc Boys are really a good tool for that. And of course, as I already said, always preferable to the Goblins, regarding Goblins. The question in general is always how to organize your front line. The Orc Boys are, in my opinion, very well designed for that, because they are shielded, and I like to put low tier units in the front line. Of course, not necessary Goblins and stuff, this is too expandable, or as I already said, not worth their salt definitely. But Orc Boys are, in my opinion, a low tier unit that is well designed to fight in the front line. They are shielded and able to protect themselves, and especially units behind them in the second and third row, from arrows. And I'm a fan to organize my front line in a way that the crab units are in the first row, especially with the Greenskins. They can act as a cannon fodder to eat the enemy charge. But as I said, Night Goblins and Goblins are so crap that they will rout off almost immediately. This is not the best way. Orc Boys, for example, are really able to hold the line for some time, and after that the second row is doing more pressure, for in this example maybe with Trolls or Black Orcs, and I think this is quite decent. It is, in my opinion, really important that the first line is still fighting when the second row is joining. The more elite stuff should be always surrounded by crab units to have at least some protection, especially for monsters, because of the fear and terror mechanic. In this example over here, the Night Goblins are almost done when the Black Orcs were joining the fight. This is not the way it should be. They haven't done nearly no damage, and of course they ate the charge bonus, but this is not enough over here, because the Black Orcs now fighting alone, and this is not the way it should be. So for this reason are the Orc Boys really good, because they are really able to hold the line for some time. So let's come to the nasty Stalkers, and these guys causing armor piercing damage. Overall is this still a low tier unit, but with a good amount of AP damage, a quite unique unit you can also say, because the stats overall are quite garbage still. The melee defense is 16, I mean, give me a complete break, because they are not designed to stay for a long time in melee combat. They get annihilated, but they have an amount of AP damage of 18, and the trick over here is of course to deploy them in a vanguard position and to attack your enemy from behind. They have this ability called Smoke Bomb that will reduce the charge speed of 76% and the speed of 76%. This is very good to escape. You activate this smoke bomb and your enemy cannot follow you. The speed is 37, what is okay for a unit, definitely. So they are quite fast. As I said, for an ambush, they are really well designed for that. They have stalk, your enemy cannot see them, and they have a good amount of AP damage. So the plan is, of course, to deploy them in a vanguard position directly behind your opponent, and after the charge in or after the armies get engaged in fight, you can charge your enemy in the back, and these guys, especially with this amount of AP damage, have a quite good damage output then. But as I said, they are not designed to fight for a long time in melee combat. They get really annihilated. They have nearly no armor. The amount is 15 and the melee defense is 16. So this is this unit is a tactical unit. Don't put them anywhere in your front line in your main army corps. It's just for tactical operations, and for this reason these guys are really good when you have the right tactic. So there's also a regiment of renown available of the Night Goblins, the Warlord's Boys, and these guys don't have this special charge attack, but they are immune to psychology, what is quite interesting. The melee defense is 34, what is now quite good. The melee attack is 32, what is also quite good, and they have armor sundering, so they will reduce with their attack the armor of your opponent by minus 30. So this is quite good. Also, they have a silver shield like the normal Night Goblins, what is always very good. They have stalk, and they are also able to get deployed in a vanguard position. So the price is just 550 credits, and for this price I would really say they're worth the price, because as I said, you get quite good stats. The amount of armor is still very low, but they have armor sundering. You can also use them in a tactical sense. You deploy them in a vanguard position, and they have, as I said, they are immune to psychology, so they don't draw it off because of fear and terror. This is quite interesting. You can sneak behind your enemy, attack him from behind, or to charge in the back. Can cause a good amount of damage and reduce the armor stats, but is really nice. And maybe your black orcs or stuff in your front line can do the rest. So for this reason, for this tactic, the Warlord's Boys are really good, and I would say they are cost efficient, and in some cases, if you have a good tactic, you can bring them to the battlefield, maybe in combination with nasty stalkers. So there's also a Regiment of Renown version available of the Night Goblin Fanatics, the 8 Peaks Loonies. And if we compare the stats of the 8 Peaks Loonies to the stats of the Warlord's Boys, we can see these guys have much more leadership, nearly the double. So we have a leadership over here of 100. But besides from that, the rest of the stats are the same. But these guys don't have armor sundering, but therefore they're causing poison attack like the normal Night Goblins, and they have their special ranged charge attack, and this time the name is the Loons of the 8 Peaks. This is their special charge attack. I'm not 100% sure if there any difference to the normal charge attack of the Night Goblin Fanatics, because the name there is the Loons of the 8 Peaks. It's not shown up over here is if there is an extra bonus on damage or stuff like that, but they have at least their special charge attack. However, this is also an activated ability. You can activate this 3 times, and you can already see they are not throwing a Morning Star. In this case, they are throwing a Gag Dwarf. I mean, give me a complete break. I love this over here, but it's not shown in the tooltips. If this does more damage, I don't know. But they are not immune to psychology, so I would say I would prefer the Warlord's Boys. The extra charge or to the 8 Peaks Loonies is just 50, so the price is nearly the same, but I would leave out the special charge attack and pick the Warlord's Boys. Even if the leadership is just the half, they are immune to psychology, they have armor sundering, and in a tactical sense it's in my opinion more preferable, and 600 credits for the 8 Peaks Loonies is quite a lot for nearly no special thing. The charge attack is not so special in my opinion to spend so much money on it, so I prefer always the Warlord's Boys over here. I never really used these guys, so I have done some tests, and you can definitely say that the charge ability is very devastating. The damage output is really good, but besides from that, nothing more to talk about. I can only say that this is really beautiful. It's sometimes really breathtaking how much love in detail CA was spending in this game. Many players will probably never notice. So this is really cool, and I think this is still one of the best digital games ever made, and I really love it. So let's come to the Savage Orcs, and this is the first pure damage dealer unit. The amount of armor is 0, quite significant over here. The melee defense is just 16, so also complete garbage. Therefore they have a quite high weapon strength for 34. The amount of armor piercing damage is naturally low on damage dealer units. The melee attack is 28, what is quite okay for that price. We have a price of 550 credits. They have a physical resistance of 25%, so this is quite interesting fact. So even if the amount of armor and melee defense is quite 0, the physical resistance is doing a lot of stuff over here with 25%, and this is a quite interesting fact. They have the ability Frenzy, that will trigger when the leadership is lower than 50%. The weapon damage will increase by 12%, the charge bonus will increase by 8%, the melee attack will increase by 8%, and they are then immune to psychology. So for 550 credits, my experience is these guys are worth the price, because they are doing a really good damage over there, and 2 or 3 groups in your front line or on the sides, on the flanks to flank your enemy are really good, especially if they are charging from behind the enemy in the back and stuff like that. They're really doing a great job, especially for the price. They're really cost efficient, even if I would still say they are low tier damage dealer unit for 550 credits, and with that stats they are still, don't expect any wonders. But as I said, 3 groups in your army to increase the amount of units, and together they will have a high damage output. For that, these guys doing a great job and doing a lot of damage. They have this war paint, that means they have no armor whatsoever, but therefore physical resistance. This means always this war paint over here. So quite interesting unit, and type of a standard unit that should be included in many builds. Savage Orcs are not in particular designed to fight in the front line. Of course, they have no armor, they are not shielded. That means they cannot protect themselves from arrows and stuff. But even though you don't have too many options on the roster, besides from Orc Boys and Goblins, nothing is shielded. When I remember myself correct, I always love to play with the Savage Orcs in the front line. You can see in this example over here now that I put 2 groups definitely on the flanks. They are well designed to flank the enemy because of their speed, maybe 1 in the middle. And in this example over here you can see they are vulnerable on the sides, of course, from against enemy cav, but you can see you can dispatch from the second row 1 unit of Orc Biggins. They are well designed with the anti-large bonus to fight enemy cav. On the flanks, however, as I said, they are really well designed to flank the enemy. They have a quite good speed, and you can already see on the right flank over here how many damage the cav already took. Don't ever fear cavalry with your Savage Orcs and Biggins. Of course, high tier cav is another thing. Heavily armored cav is not so easy to kill, but in this case, low tier cav, mid-range cav, they really slice and dice everything. You can also see here now on the left flank, I get interrupted from a group of pilgrims, but even the pilgrims are not able to hold the line against the Savage Orcs, maybe for some time, but not over a long distance. The Savage Orcs are really good for the price. The efficiency is very good, and as I said, you can put 2 definitely on the outer flanks, 1 maybe in the middle. Don't forget to protect them maybe a little bit, because as I said, from from harass units or high tier cav or stuff like that. If you dispatch them too far away, you should definitely protect them a little bit with orc biggins and stuff. But besides from that, on the sides they're doing really well. One in the middle is also quite okay in my opinion. So if you bring 3 savage orcs in many builds, 1 in the middle, 2 on the flanks, this is quite decent in my opinion. So let's talk about the orc biggins. These guys are a mid-range infantry unit and a very cost efficient one. They also count as a damage dealer unit. They are have no shield whatsoever. The amount of armor is naturally, like many other greenskin units, quite low with 50. The leadership is not the best, but therefore they have a quite high damage output with a melee attack of 38 in combination with a weapon strength of 42. This is really good for that price, for 800 credits. The melee defense is 28, typically for a damage dealer unit quite low, but we have a quite okay or quite good amount of AP damage for a damage dealer unit. It is 13. Of course it is still quite low, but for a damage dealer unit in that price area, it's okay. It's really okay. And don't forget, many players don't notice that these guys are anti-large. It's not shown in the tooltips, but they have an anti-large bonus in fact of 8. So also quite interesting fact and perfect. They are doing so perfect in fights against enemy cavalry. So don't be shy to attack enemy cavalry with these guys. These guys really slice and dice other mid-range and low-tier cavalry units. They're really perfect for that. But besides from that, nothing special, no ability whatsoever, and nothing more to tell about these guys. 800 credits is a really good price for these biggins. This is one of the best infantry units on the Greenskin army roster. They're really cost efficient and should be in nearly every build, because as I said, against large targets, especially cavalry, you don't expect to drop a giant or stuff like that, but against low tier mid-range cavalry, they are doing really well. So there are also savage orc biggins, and these guys are a pure elite damage dealer unit of the Greenskins. And the stats regarding the normal savage orcs is much increased. We have a melee attack of 40 now. Our melee defense is a little bit increased. It's still complete garbage of 22, but this unit is all about damage output, and the melee attack of 40 in combination with the weapon strength of 42 is really superior. So we have a weapon strength of 42, amount of AP damage with 13 is okay for a damage dealer unit, and these guys are also have also a bonus versus large. This is also quite interesting. The bonus is 8. They have also this war paint over here. That means they have a physical resistance but no armor whatsoever. They have this frenzy ability, like I told you before, but besides from that, nothing special. The stats are simply increased to the stats of the savage orcs. You can say the savage orc biggins are, like the name, a combination out of the orc biggins and the savage orcs. If we compare the stats of the normal orc biggins to the savage orc biggins, we can see that the stats are a little bit different. The savage orc biggins have, of course, no armor. The orc biggins have at least 50 armor. The melee attack is a little bit increased on the savage orc biggins, therefore the melee defense is a bit reduced. But overall, there is just a big difference in the armor. So the orc biggins have a higher armor, or they have at least the armor, and the savage orc biggins have no armor, therefore the physical resistance. So this is the only difference. The price is 900 credits, so in some cases you can bring them. I would personally, in my personal experience, I would always prefer the normal orc biggins, because my experience is that they are really doing well. They have at least a little bit armor, and also the melee defense is a little bit increased with 28 regarding 22 of the savage orc biggins. So I would prefer the normal orc biggins, because the extra price, extra charge is 100, and you can save the 100 credits. Then you can say the Savage Orc Biggins are elite pure damage dealer unit, and the Orc Biggins have at least a little bit more defense and stuff, and the price is a little cheaper. So as I said, I would prefer the normal Orc Biggins, but maybe you have other playstyle, so it depends. But as I said, I would prefer the normal Orc Biggins. So let's come to the elite units, and we have just 2 available, the Black Orcs and the Regiment of Renown version of the Black Orcs, the Crimson Killers. The Black Orcs are a good elite infantry unit. They have a quite good amount of armor, so at least this is the only unit on the infantry roster that is very heavily armored with 110, what is really good. The amount of melee attack with 36 is good, the melee defense with 26 is quite bad in fact, but still, also here, it's all about damage output, melee attack of 36 in combination with a weapon strength of 50, and they have an amount of AP damage of 36, so superior. What is very very good on the Black Orcs, and for example better than on Chosen, is that these guys are immune to psychology. But summing all together, nothing more to talk about, no other special ability whatsoever. It's just a unit, a very heavily armored unit with a high damage output. The Black Orcs are in fact definitely not the best elite unit in the infantry unit in the complete game, but they are also not one of the worst units. So if we would compare all elite infantry units in the game, they would be in a mid-range area, I would say. They're definitely not able to kill a group of Swordsmasters or Haganeth Executioners or stuff also Chosen would slice and dice them, but they are still quite good. So this is a very decent unit. They are far away from bad. They are definitely good. The price is 1,150, and I would definitely say this is cost efficient. The performance regarding the price is really really good, and nothing more to talk about. If you have to pierce a lot of armor of your opponent against Starwee or the High Elves and stuff, these guys are really designed for that, and definitely necessary, because you don't have other tools. All these other damage dealer units and stuff, all these other infantry units don't have a very very low amount of AP damage. The Black Orcs are the only option on this roster over here to compete against heavily armored units, so they are very very important for the Greenskins at all. So let's come to the Crimson Killers, the Regiment of Renown version of the Black Orcs, and the melee stats are increased regarding the Black Orcs, and quite good increased. So we have a melee defense now of 36, what is quite good. Also the melee attack is increased, +7 over here, 43 now, very very good. The leadership is a bit increased, nothing special, and but besides from that, the rest of the stats are the same. But the Crimson Killers are now anti-infantry, but they have no anti-infantry bonus, so there has to be a special ability, and we have an ability called Armed to the Thief. I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but this means you can kill several foes with each swing. This is the special ability of the Crimson Killers, so with one swing they can kill several foes. I'm not sure why, because they can pierce the armor much better or stuff like that, but they have the weapon strength is the same, the amount of AP damage is the same regarding the normal Black Orcs, as I said, but the ability allows them to kill several foes with each swing. The problem is a little bit, in my opinion, the price. So in the past, the difference between the normal Black Orcs and the Crimson Killers was not that big, but meanwhile we have nearly an extra charge of 400 credits. I mean, give me a break. I mean, of course the melee stats are increased quite a lot, +10 for example on the melee defense, but still also with this ability Armed to the Thief, my opinion, it's not worth it. It's so much money, 1,550 credits. I would prefer the normal Black Orcs. I don't see in my own builds any slot to use these guys, and so I would not recommend to spend these 500 credits extra charge. What you get over here more than on the Black Ox is not worth the 400 credits, so I would stay on normal Black Ox. So that was everything from the infantry. We have a quite good selection out of different units. In a mid-range area, low tier area, many of them are damage dealers. We have not so much options on the elite stuff. We have just one AP damage unit, the Black Orcs, and of course the nasty Stalkers. But even though the selection is very good and the infantry is a quite strong part on the Greenskin roster, and yeah, nothing more to talk about. A really good infantry lineup over here. And yeah, let's continue with the Missile Infantry. So let's come to the Goblin Archers, the cheapest missile infantry unit over here for 375 credits. The missile damage is 16, what is very, very bad. The amount of AP damage is 1. I don't have to comment that. I think the missile range is 115, also very bad. And at least they have a good weapon strength, but the melee attack is 10, defense is 15. They are in melee combat, they are complete garbage. You can forget this completely. And as I already said, even the damage output is very, very bad. So even for the price, 375 credits, the performance is horrific. If I compare the stats, for example, against Peasant Bowmen, and the price is 400, this is just 25 extra charge. They have a range of 160, a missile damage of 20, amount of AP damage of 3, so much better stats over here. As I said, the Goblin Archers, the performance is really, really horrific. Neither against armor nor against, in a normal way, against unarmored targets. I would leave out these guys completely because it's not worth the price, even if they are quite cheap. So let's come to the Night Goblin Archers, and the only difference to the normal Goblin Archers is that they have better melee combat stats, and they are causing poison attacks. So they're causing poison attacks with their melee attack and with their missile damage. But besides from that, nothing special. As I said, we have the same amount of missile damage, 16, same amount of AP damage, 1. Complete garbage. You can deploy them in a vanguard position, and they have a little bit increased melee combat stats, but it's still complete garbage. So besides from the poison attack and the possibility that you can deploy them in a vanguard position, I don't see any purpose for these guys. The price is 475 credits, so 100 extra charge, so I would simply leave them out. So let's come to the Night Goblin Archer, the Fanatics, but nothing special over here. We have just these charge, or activated ability, this charge attack spinning loons, but besides from that, nothing more. So the same result as the normal Night Goblin Archers. I would leave them out, even if I really love the Night Goblins. They're looking so cool, but I would leave them out. So let's come to the Orc Ara boys, and these guys have now a higher missile damage of 21. Also the missile range is increased to 140. This is quite interesting. They are declared with a poor accuracy. I'm not sure. I pick the Orc Ara boys very often if I play with the Greenskins, so I noticed that they are not that good as, of course, archers from the high elves and stuff, so they miss their target many times. I noticed that in gameplay, but even though at least they are one of the better tools on the missile infantry on the Greenskins, as I said, especially because the damage is increased in the missile range. This is also very important. The amount of AP damage is 6, so we are now in the range where the AP damage can add up. And also some melee combat stats are increased. Melee attack 23, weapon strength is 34. What is quite interesting, we have now a very high weapon strength, you can say, But at least they are just able to hold the line for some time, but you don't expect any wonders, of course. So in some cases for 500 credits, the Orc Era Boys are quite decent solution if you need some missile infantry. One of, in my opinion, are the Orc Era Boys one of the best solution on the roster over here. As you already noticed, the Greenskins are not very strong with their missile infantry. And for that reason, if you pick one of the units over here, the Orc Era Boys are quite decent pick for that money. I think 2 units, 1 or 2 units, in some cases it's okay. So let's come to the Savage Orc Era Boys, and what we have over here is increased melee combat stats, you can say. The defense is a little bit decreased, but everything not really significant. You can say that these guys have their physical resistance of 25% like the normal Savage Orcs, therefore they have no armor, and some stats are really just a little increased, +1 melee attack, +1 weapon strength. Don't have to talk about that. Everything over here is still not really designed to fight in melee combat. And in this case, even if the extra charge is just 50 more, I would never pick this Savage Orc Era Boys. We have just a little bit increased melee combat stats. The melee defense is decreased a lot. We have just 8, so they are really nearly not able to defend themselves in combat. The only thing, as I already said, they have no armor there for the physical resistance. But I don't see any point where I would pick or where I would spend 50 credits more for the Savage Orc Era Boys. I would leave out these guys completely, because I don't see any purpose why I would like to get a little bit increased melee combat stats to fight with missile infantry in melee combat. They are not anti-large nothing, so leave them out. It's complete garbage. Last but not least, the probably best missile infantry unit on the roster for 600 credits, also the most expensive one, the Rusty Arrows. The big advantage over here that they have an armor sundering ability, so they will reduce the amount of ammo by 30 with their missile damage, what is quite interesting. The missile damage is 20, also not bad. At least the amount of AP damage is just 1, but as I said, with this sundering armor ability, this is still quite okay, especially because you can support your other units that are not able to pierce the armor or stuff like that, your infantry units, or maybe also your black orcs. They can slice and dice the reduced armor then very, very fast. Besides from that, they have also causing poison attacks in melee combat, but I wouldn't say there isn't anything other special thing. They are able to get deployed in vanguard position like the normal night goblin archers. But as I said, in many cases, I will pick these guys for 600 credits. The armor sundering ability is very good, especially to support maybe Orc Era Boys, so these guys will not pierce armor very well, or other infantry unit, or their own damage for itself. The armor of your opponent gets reduced, and then you are able to get through the rest of the armor much easier with other units or with the Rusty Arrows for itself. So I would spend these 600 credits, and I would say these guys are really worth their salt. So this is everything for the missile infantry. We have a good selection, but we have nearly no quality, so everything is quite garbage. I would say, besides from the Orc Era Boys and the Rusty Arrows, I wouldn't say it's worth to pick anything from here. The damage output is so low. So yeah, nothing more to talk about. This is definitely not the strength of the Greenskins. Let's continue with the Cavalry and the Chariots. So let's go with the Cavalry, and let's begin with the Goblin Wolf Riders, and I'm a big fan of these guys. They have not the best melee stats. The melee stats are in fact quite low. We have an amount of 22 on the melee attack, and on the melee defense 20. The weapon strength is 24, and the amount of AP damage is also very low with 5. they count as expendable, so other units will not get a leadership drop if these guys will rout off. It's possible to deploy them in a vanguard position, but it's very, very good. And the most positive is over here the price. We have a price of 300 and a speed of 92. And this is the most, the best point over here, because these guys are very, very cheap and they are very, very fast. Of course, they are not they are definitely very bad in melee combat, but they are best designed to chase off routing units, to attack non-armored or let me say low tier missile infantry units. So of course no Lothern Sea Guard and stuff. This is not definitely not, they are not definitely not able to kill something like this, but against, for example, a group of Angkor riders or stuff, they are really, really good for that, and this is their purpose, chasing out routing units and killing out enemy missile infantry. And for 300 credits with that speed, this is really, really good. They are so mobile, they are so fast, they can run away from other heavy cavalry, so don't be shy to bring these guys to the battlefield. Even if your opponent has cavalry on the battlefield, they are very, very, very fast. You can run away and keep them occupied, and for all these purposes, these guys are really perfect. As I said, the amount of the melee stats are not the best, but for the price, I think this is okay. The amount of armor is very low with 25, but they have a small shield. They have in fact a bronze shield, what is quite nice. So overall, of course, don't expect any wonders, but for some tactical attacks, these guys are really perfect. This is their purpose, and as I said, they are so fast, and you have a huge amount of mobility on the battlefield, so you do nothing wrong to deploy for 300 credits a group of Goblin Wolf Riders. This is much, much more efficient than, for example, a low tier infantry unit like the normal goblins. You have here a very mobile group of goblins over here, very fast and very good, especially for tactical operations. So there's also a regiment of renowned version available, the Moonhowlers. And these guys have increased melee stats, +5 on the melee attack, +9 on the melee defense, +10 more leadership, but besides from that, nothing special. The only big point over here is the fact that these guys causing fear. But even though I wouldn't spend 150 credits more for these guys, because even with the increased melee stats, the stats are still low. So don't expect any wonders. It doesn't matter if you have 27 melee attack or 22. It's nearly no difference. And it's not worth to spend much more money, even if also the leadership +10. I mean, give me a break. It doesn't really make any difference. The leadership is still low with 50 for 4. Of course, they're causing fear, but anyway, it's not worth to pick them. Pick always the normal Goblin Wolf Riders for 300 credits. So let's come to the Forest Goblin Spider Riders, and if we compare the stats of the Goblin Wolf Riders to the stats of the Forest Goblin Spider Riders, we can clearly see that we have on the most points better stats, much more hit points, much more armor, much more melee defense, +10 in fact. Now we have 30, what is quite good. The melee attack is the same with 22, so it's still low, but these guys causing poison attacks. The weapon strength is a bit increased, +3. They have also a bronze shield. They are able to get deployed in a vanguard position. They are Striders, what is a quite interesting ability in my opinion. So they will not slow down during a run through a forest or stuff like that. They will not get any penalties caused by terrain or stuff like that. This is quite interesting. And as I said, the poison attack is quite interesting. The only problem in my opinion here is that these guys have a much lower speed. The speed is just 78. This is a bit a huge disadvantage, I would say, but besides from that, you have just advantages. So in some cases, I would really say it's also here worth to spend 100 credits more. For 400 credits, you can deploy the Forest Goblin Spider Riders. I really also like the Spider Riders, even if I would in the most cases prefer the Wolf Riders because they are faster. In some cases the stats are, you get for 100 credits a lot more on the Spider Riders. This is really a fact, and the only disadvantage is the speed. So in some cases, as I already said, it's really also worth to pick the Forest Goblin Spider Riders. I really like these kind of units. Very cheap cavalry, very high amount of mobility, and for 400 credits also here you do nothing wrong. And you don't have to forget, these guys are still very, very fast. And even if the speed is reduced regarding the Goblin Wolf Riders, these guys over here causing the Spider Riders causing poison, and poison is always good if you want to chase something, to hunt something down. In some cases you should be able to poison your target, maybe a missile cavalry unit that is faster than you. The speed will be reduced and then you are able to catch them, and this is always quite good, and this is a little bit a compensation regarding their speed. But be aware, in this case over here, in this example over here, a group of Glade Riders is able to, in the most cases, to kill a group of Goblin Spider Riders in melee combat. So be aware what you're going to chase. So let's come to the Night Goblin Squig Hoppers, and these guys are a anti-infantry unit and they're causing armor piercing damage. The amount of AP damage is 19, what's quite good. The bonus, and they have a bonus versus infantry of 10, so very good. The weapon strength overall is 27, it's okay. Therefore we have a very, very low melee defense. This is very significant. Over here we have just 18, this is nearly nothing, in combination with a very low amount of armor of 25. So these guys will get a lot of damage. The melee attack is also not really high, it's in fact quite low, we have just 23, this is also not really good, therefore they're causing poison attacks. Quite interesting is also the fact that these guys are immune to psychology, so they will not get a terror out or stuff like that from a giant nearby. This is very good. It's also possible to deploy these guys in a vanguard position, what is quite interesting. So in summary, a quite interesting unit. We have weaknesses of course, but we have also a lot of strength. Vanguard deployment, immune to psychology, quite good amount of AP damage, bonus versus infantry, therefore weaknesses like low amount of melee attack, defense, armor, and but the price is 650 credits, is also not really expensive. It's in my opinion cost efficient. Maybe the Night Goblin Squig Hoppers are quite underrated in this game. I would definitely not say that they should be picked in all matchups, but I would say there are some matchups where I can see that these guys would perform quite decent, and you barely see them in any builds. So I would say they are underrated. They have their weaknesses, but also I think they have their strength. The best use is probably also in a tactical sense, in a vanguard position, doing some ambushes from rear charges, but I also saw them in some builds in the front line directly, not directly in the front line, but just marching with the main army corps. This is also possible in some builds. They can do a lot of damage during a very short period of time against armored infantry, but also against low tier infantry, non-armored infantry. So this is really perfect over here. They are also quite fast, so they have a speed of 82. This is really not bad. So also here they are quite mobile, so I really like these guys. I definitely say they are not designed in every build or stuff like that, but in some cases it's really worth to bring them, use them in a tactical sense, or in some cases also just with your main army corps. You can see now in the following example, of course this is just an example, how much trouble 2 units of Goblin Squig Hoppers will cause to enemy missile infantry, but also to damage dealer units like Dryads. So please enjoy this little example here uncommented. So there's also Regiment of Renown unit available, version available, the Durkids, Squigs. These guys have a increased amount of leadership, plus 10, 60 overall now, but still not really good. So the Night Goblin Squig Hoppers also have a very low amount of leadership. The leadership is just 50. On the Durkin Squigs it's 60, so also still not really good. The amount of melee attack is increased by 5, 28 now, plus 8 melee defense, 26 now, but still the stats are, it don't make any big difference over here. They have a scaly skin, that means they have a missile resistance in this case of 25%, but even though the extra charge is just 100, but even though it's not worth to bring them, because it doesn't make really a big difference over here. It's just a bit increased stats. But besides from that, nothing special, so I would leave out these Durkid Squigs. Durkid Squigs. Give me a break. Worth to be mentioned is, as a side note, that then I noticed that the Night Goblin Squig Hoppers and the Durkid Squigs have a quite good mass. So they are really, even if they seem quite small, they do really good rear charges, and the mass overall is quite good over here. So let's talk about the Orc War Boys, and these guys have also a quite decent price, 650 credits. The melee stats are overall still not the best. We have a melee attack of 22, a melee defense of 22 also. Therefore the amount of armor is now for the Greenskins quite okay. We have 50. Regarding other factions, this is still crap, but as I say, naturally the Greenskins are not so heavily armored, so 50 is in fact quite good for the Greenskins. They have a bronze shield, and the weapon strength of 30 is also quite good. A very interesting factor, the most positive point, is that these guys cause AP damage, so we have 20 over here. This is very good. And besides from that, they had no special ability whatsoever. The charge bonus of 46 is okay. On all these other units, the Wolf Riders, the Forest Goblin Spider Riders or Squig Hoppers, the charge bonus were always quite low, just about 20. But here we have 46. This is really good. These guys, the Orc Boar Boys, are declared as a anti-infantry unit, even if they don't have a real anti-infantry bonus. It's meant that their best design or best use is to fight against infantry units, and especially with the amount of AP damage of 20, this is very good, especially because we don't have in the infantry corps, we don't have so much units that cause AP damage, and for this reason these Orc Boar Boys can really support your infantry and fight against other infantry units. I really like them. They count as a shock cavalry. The price is really decent, so I really love these guys, but be really careful if you are going to face up against factions that are typically bring high tier cav, mid-range anti-large cavalry to the battlefield. These guys are really screwed, so just bring them in cases where you are definitely sure that your opponent will not bring any counter cavalry over here to the battlefield, because they will get annihilated. And also don't expect any wonders against high tier infantry and stuff. These guys will definitely not perform very well against very heavily cavalry or very strong elite cavalry, because the melee stats are still quite low. But as I said, against mid-range, low-tier cavalry and armored cavalry in this area, these guys will perform very good, and for this purpose this is quite decent. So let's come to the Savage Orc Boar Boys, and if we compare the stats of the Savage Orc Boar Boys to the stats of the Orc Boar Boys, we can see that the price is 100 more. Besides from that, we have a massive decreased amount of armor, minus 25, so 25 now overall. The melee defense is just 14, also massive decreased, minus 8. Therefore, typically for the Savage Orcs, we have a physical resistance of 25%. Besides from that, we have a bit increased melee attack plus 4. But overall, in my opinion, nothing special. They also count as a anti-infantry unit. They have an amount of armor piercing of 20, but it's still good. But I would still prefer the Orc Boar Boys, because I don't see any big advantage over here besides from the physical resistance, but therefore they have no armor and melee defense, so I would prefer the Orc Boar Boys. So let's come to this Orc Boar Boy Biggins. It's complicated. These guys are now anti-large. If we compare the stats of the Orc Boar Boys to the stats of the Orc Boar Boy Biggins, we can see that they have a massive increased amount of hit points, plus 800. The amount of armor is a bit increased, 60 overall now. The melee attack is the same, the melee defense is also nearly the same. The weapon strength is a bit increased, and also the charge bonus a bit. Overall, all stats are, you can say the complete stats are a bit increased, besides some exceptions. But we have a little bit higher amount of AP damage with 23, but we have an amount of anti-large bonus of 12, and this is the most important fact over here. This is the first anti-large cavalry, or the only anti-large cavalry besides the Regiment of Renown version, and this is very, very important. This is not a high-tier cavalry. We have a price of 950 credits. For that price, these guys are really cost-efficient. They count as a shock cavalry, as an anti-large cavalry, but it's definitely not the best in the game. They get annihilated from Blood Knights and stuff, so Demigryph Knights, everything will definitely slice and dice these guys. But at least it is quite good to have at least anti-large cavalry available over here, even if it is definitely one of the worst in the game. But still, for that price, quite cost efficient. I hope you get what I mean. So I like these guys, even if you don't have to expect that these guys will not stand their ground against high-tier anti-large cav like Blood Knights. So there is also a Regiment of Renown, as I already mentioned. The Broken Tusks mob, these guys have a much increased amount of armor, plus 30. This is now amount is 90, what is very, very good. Also the leadership is increased 78 overall. I increased melee attack of 27, melee defense of 29. It's still not really good, but far away from bad, so it's okay. The price is 1,300 credits. It's the extra charge is a lot. So we have our extra charge of 350 credits. This is quite a lot of stuff over here. We have better stats, but still not good enough to compete against high tier other cavalry. The bonus is 12. Bonus as large as 12. The amount of AP damage is still 23. So they have the encourage ability, so they will encourage other units nearby. So they will provide a leadership buff. But besides from that, because there is no other anti-large cavalry, they have definitely some slots in some builds, but still don't expect any wonders against other good high-tier cavalry. These guys will still not stand their ground, and the extra charge is a lot. In some cases, it's maybe better to bring two groups of Orc Boar Boy Biggins. But if you would like to bring two groups of anti-large cav, in some cases it's also worth to bring the Broken Tusk mobs, even if I wouldn't say they are cost efficient, but you don't have too much options, and for in this case they have definitely their place. So let's come to the Savage Orc Boar Boy Biggins. I mean, these names are incredible. And if we compare the stats, for example, let's take the Orc Boar Boys, these guys for 650 credits. If we compare them to the Savage Orc Boar Boy Biggins, we can see that nearly all stats are increased. Besides, also here the melee defense is just 14 and the amount of armor is just 25, like on the Savage Orc Boar Boys. So therefore also here we have the frenzy ability and the physical resistance of 25%. The weapon strength is really good. We have a high damage output with 36. This is massive. We have a small bonus versus large, so this is not really a anti-large cavalry. I wouldn't say it is, because the bonus is so small. that it doesn't really count as a anti-large. It's also not shown up in the tooltips, but even though we have at least the anti-large bonus, we have a quite good amount of AP damage with 24. The weapon strength with 36 is really good. The price for 1,100 credits is, in my opinion, decent. These guys are cost efficient, especially because we have a very high damage output. The only problem over here is also here, I'm not a fan of no armor and defense, therefore the physical resistance is there. I'm not sure if this is so good. Of course, many other cavalry units not causing magical attacks. Magic attacks are the annihilator for physical resistance, but many infantry units doing magical attacks. My big problem over here is the missing melee defense. This is a bit a problem. You can replace the armor with a physical resistance, but the melee defense is still missing, so I'm not sure. In some cases maybe this version, or the Warpaint version, or the Warpaint the way with no armor, therefore physical resistance pay off, but in others I'm not a big fan of it. But even though the price is 1,100 credits, you get a huge damage output, a huge charge bonus with 58, or a quite good one. We have at least a little bit of a bonus versus large, so in some cases maybe a combination out of Orc Boy Biggins with Savage Orc Boy Biggins to fight other cavalry units is quite decent. But besides for that, nothing more to tell. The price is cost efficient in my opinion, and in some combinations it's worth to bring the Savage Orc Boy Biggins to the battlefield. So last but not least, let's talk about the Orc Boar Chariot. We have a huge charge bonus of 80, like on many other chariots over here. The weapon strength is 40, the amount of AP damage is 30, the bonus versus infantry is 18, the melee attack is 26, the melee attack is 28, and the defense 26. We have a quite good amount of armor, even if this chariot looks like is constructed out of old wood. The amount of armor is 90, what is quite good. So if we just look at the stats, they are quite good. The price is 1,000 credits. It could be cheaper in my opinion. I would say 700 credits would be enough, because the mass of the chariot is not really good. They do not go through infantry units like a hot knife through butter, like the Gorby's chariots for example. So they get stuck every time. It's difficult to pull them out. So the performance is in real time not that good. The price is therefore, in my opinion, too high, even if the stats are not bad. 700 credits would be enough, and therefore this unit is not cost efficient. For 700 credits, I would say in some cases maybe it's worth to bring them, because at least they have good stats. But as I said, the performance on the battlefield is, because of the missing mass, very bad. So I would leave out the Orc Boar Chariots always. It's not worth to bring them or to play with them. In summary, we have a very good selection out of different cavalry units. We have a quite good low tier cavalry. We have quite good low tier cavalry units with a high amount of speed. Therefore, we have a mid-range and high tier cavalry with a very low amount of speed. For itself, are the most units quite cost efficient, but the problem is they are still not good enough to compete against high tier cavalry from other factions like Empire, Bretonnia, and this is a bit a problem. But as I said, for itself, for what you pay, you get a lot. So the price is just 950 credits for example, or 650 credits for the Orc Boar Boys, and for that price you get a lot of performance, but they are still not, you cannot expect any wonders for the price. They cannot compete against high tier cavalry or mid-range cavalry from other factions. And this is a bit a problem. The cavalry over here is in the most cases just is a support of your infantry. It's not meant to be for itself to compete against other cavalry units or also big monsters and stuff. This is not the way. This should be just for a support, and in some cases your infantry has to support your cavalry. This is more the way it should be, and this is very, very important to understand. We have a good cavalry, we have a good selection, we have a very cost efficient one, but when it comes to the performance in a high tier area, this is definitely not good enough to compete against other factions, against many other units. So let's continue with the Missile Cavalry and the Missile Chariots. So let's begin over here with the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers. We have a bit decreased melee attack, melee defense regarding the normal Goblin Wolf Riders. Therefore we have some missile damage. The missile damage is 16. The amount of AP damage is 1. Complete garbage. These guys are expendable. They can fire whilst moving, what is quite good always for kite units, of course. They can get deployed in a vanguard position. The price is 350 credits, but I would say it's not worth to bring them. The damage output is very, very low. The missile range is very low. The melee combat stats you can forget now completely, because they are reduced regarding the normal Goblin Wolf Riders. So I wouldn't spend these 350 credits on these guys, just simple as that. So let's come to the Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers. The names get even longer and longer. This is incredible. Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, yes. And these guys causing poison attacks, and this makes this a bit more interesting, because we have now poison attack. The missile damage is still just 16. The amount of AP damage is 2. It's a bit increased. They are also able to get deployed in the vanguard position. They are striders, so nothing special overall. We have also here decreased stats on the melee combat and stuff regarding the normal Forest Goblin Spider Riders. But the most important point, these guys causing poison attacks. So in some cases it's really worth to bring them to the battlefield, especially you can slow down your enemy, you will reduce the armor. This is a quite good kite unit for 450 credits. In some cases really worth to bring to the battlefield, especially, as I said, because of the poison attack. The most annoying kite units are always the units that are able to cause poison attacks, because it's very, very difficult for their follower to get them, because they get slowed down from the poison. Yeah, just a side note, always remember poison attacks on kite units is very, very strong. So there's also a regiment of renowned version available of the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers. The Moorkrups Mengi Marauders. That's incredible. The extra price, we have a price overall of 600 now. This is an extra, our extra price, extra charge of 250, what is quite a lot. We are now not in a low tier area. This is can count as a mid-range unit. This is not cheap anymore. 600 is quite decent. The melee stats are increased. We have an increased melee attack by +4, increased melee defense by +7. It's still bad over here. I have a little bit increased leadership by +10, but everything not really worth to be mentioned. But we have increased missile damage by +4. We have 20 over now. And now the most significant point, these guys causing armor piercing missile damage. And we have a quite good amount for that price. The amount is 10. This is quite good for that price, and really a very, very important fact over here. And these guys are immune to psychology. So even if the price is now quite high in my opinion, or really in a mid-range area, it's not really a low tier unit anymore. In some cases it's really worth to bring them, especially because they are causing armor piercing missile damage. This is very, very important. And in some cases, if you bring kite units, harass units to the battlefield, you can always, or in some cases, if you are facing up against heavily armored infantry targets or stuff like that, in some cases it's really worth to mix a group of Moorkrups Mengi Marauders into Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers or stuff. This is really worth it, and even if the price is not really cheap anymore. So there's also a regiment of renowned version available of the Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, the Death Creepers. And we have here also increased melee stats, melee attack by +4. It's still crap with 19, but we have a much higher melee defense over here is massively increased, or massive increase by +9, what is quite a lot in this area. The melee defense is now 31 and not really bad anymore. This is quite okay. The leadership is increased a bit by +10, but not worth to be mentioned. It's still very, very low. The missile damage is increased by +4. And now we have a missile damage of 20, but still these guys causing no AP missile damage, or nearly no AP missile damage. It's still just 2, so this is not increased. They have stalk, so this unit can move hidden in any terrain, and they have regeneration, so quite interesting things over here. The extra charge is 200, but even though I would say it's not worth to bring them. Now the price is 650, and this is now quite a lot. This is not in a low tier area anymore. I mean, the normal forest goblin, spider rider, archers doing really nearly the same damage. Of course it's a bit increased on the death creepers, but the difference is not so much, and we have for the forest goblin, spider rider, archers have a quite decent price of 450 credits, and the most important point is still the poison attacks, so I wouldn't spend the 200 credits extra charge because of regeneration. I mean, this is not really a big thing over here. If these guys will get attacked by a cavalry unit stuff, they get annihilated, so there is nothing you can regenerate after that. And the stock ability is nice, but also not. I wouldn't spend the 200 credits extra charge. I would prefer the forest goblin, spider rider, archers. So we have a chariot, the goblin wolf chariot. I was never a fan. I said that in one of my in a other faction guide that I'm not a fan of missile chariots, because the stats of the melee stats are massively reduced. We have a much lower charge bonus, -42 regarding the normal orc board chariot. This is really, really bad. Just the charge bonus of 38. All stats are not so good. The weapon strength is just 42. The amount of AP damage is just 6. We have a small bonus versus infantry at least of 12, but if we compare it to the orc board chariot, we have over here a bonus of 18 and the AP damage of 30, so this is nothing more to talk about over here. Everything a lot reduced, therefore we have a much higher speed. The speed is 92. This is a very, very fast chariot, and we have a missile damage of 82. The amount of AP damage is crap, it's just 3. So on paper the missile damage with 82 is quite good. This is typical for missile chariots. Of course we have 6 entities over here, what is quite interesting. They are very, very fast. This is definitely a positive point. But in real game, or in the game itself, you will see that the damage output is complete garbage. They don't perform really good. Don't get me wrong. I don't see any purpose for these missile chariots, because as I said, the missile damage on paper is good, but in the game you will see you are not doing much damage at all, and if you go in melee combat, the stats are so much reduced regarding normal chariots that you can forget this completely. So in my opinion, I would leave out the goblin wolf chariot. There's also a Regiment of Renown version available, the Thief Robbers. These guys have a much increased missile damage, 105 in fact now. The melee attack is increased, the melee defense is increased, the leadership is increased, but not significant. The most important point is definitely the missile damage over here. Besides from that, these guys are able to get deployed in a vanguard position, and they can hide in a forest. For some reasons it's not possible on the normal goblin wolf chariots. We have a amount of AP damage of 3. It's still complete garbage. The missile damage, as I said, is massive increased. The price is 650 credits, and I haven't done some tests with this thing over here because I'm really not a fan of missile chariots. On paper everything sounds quite good because the price is very, very cheap. 650 credits is not really much for a chariot, But also the normal Goblin Wolf Chariot was not expensive with 500 credits. So the price is really cheap. You cannot say anything about that. But still, I'm skeptical when it comes to the performance, even if the price is very low and the stats on paper are quite good now on the Thief Robbers. I'm not sure. I wouldn't play with them. This is my personal opinion. You can test the Thief Robbers. Maybe you say it's worth it. But in my opinion, I would leave these guys out. Definitely a positive point and worth to be mentioned is that we have also 6 entities over here in one group, and they are very fast, like the normal Goblin Wolf Chariots. So the Missile Cavalry or the kite units in general are definitely not bad. They are definitely not the best in the game, but at least we have a quite good selection and some good options with the Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, for example, or the Moor Group's Mangy Marauders. These 2 units are really good, for very cost efficient. So we have some options, we have some good options, but there are better kite units, of course. But definitely are the kite units are small, or a strength of the Greenskins, you can definitely say. So let's continue with the monsters and the beasts. So let's begin with the Squig Herd. The Squig Herd is also an anti-infantry unit. These guys causing AP damage. The amount of weapon strength is 33, the amount of AP damage is 24, and they have a real bonus versus infantry of 11, so really superior stats over here. They have a very good charge bonus still with 40 over here. This is not bad. The melee attack is not really the best. We have 26, melee defense just 18, is complete garbage, unfortunately. They are a bit armored. 50 is in fact for the Greenskins not bad. The leadership is very low, so always remember that these guys will rout off very fast. But their damage output in general is in a very short period of time quite good. They count as damage dealers. As I said, the damage output is very good. They are anti-infantry, armor piercing, as I already said, but they cause what is a big disadvantage is rampage, so they will get on rampage. This is very bad, especially for a unit that has a really bad melee defense. These guys are designed to fight other infantry units, and imagine if these guys will run in enemy monsters or cavalry, they get nearly annihilated within seconds. The leadership is very low, so the rampage is really a big disadvantage over here. They have an ability called Squigs Go Wild. This is constantly, the ability range is 30 meters. That will increase the leadership by 12. So this means, of course, that their leadership is not 36. In general, it is 48, but still quite low. As I already said, they go on rampage, but a big advantage over here is that they are immune to psychology. So it sounds like that we have many disadvantages, but even though I'm a fan of the Squig Herd especially because of their price. We have a price of 500 credits over here. You spent for 2 units for 60 entities overall, then in one group are 30 entities, you spend 1000 credits. This is not really much. You have a very high damage output within a very short period of time against armored targets. You have to remember that we don't have too much options on the infantry roster, that too much units that causing armor piercing damage, and for this reason I'm really still a fan of these guys. Even we have huge disadvantages over the time, they will get probably annihilated because of the rampage ability, because of their missing melee defense and stuff. But in the beginning or after the charge and stuff, they cause in a very short period of time a lot of damage against armored but also against non-armored targets. And the price is very cheap. They are, in my opinion, cost efficient and worth to be picked, and in some builds really decent. I really like these guys, in fact. So let's talk about trolls and trolls in general. I like trolls in general. The best use is always, I said it in one faction guide, in my chaos faction guide, stuff like that, that the best use is always within your own or surrounded from your own infantry units. This is their best use. The leadership is naturally very, very low with 40, but if they are surrounded from your own units, never put them in the first row. Put them always in the second or third line in your front line, not in your front line in the third or second row, and then let them fight surrounded by your own infantry units. This is their best use because they have a really low leadership. The amount of armor with 40 is really bad, but for the Greenskins it's okay. This is a non-armored troll version, so we have just the normal trolls here, not like the Chaos armor trolls. We have just on the roster normal trolls available for a very low amount of armor of 40, but as I said, for the Greenskins it's okay. The melee defense is 32, 33 on the melee attack, but we have a huge weapon strength, 100, and we have a huge amount of AP damage of 70. So these guys causing fear. Very good is here if they are surrounded, as I already said, from your own infantry troops in the frontline fight. The fear will trigger on the enemy even if they are not engaged in the fight. So trolls can support your low tier or mid-range frontline troops massively. They have regeneration, and yeah, trolls are in this case, or on the Greenskin roster, in my opinion, quite important in many matchups. As I said, the infantry is not causing so much, not so much infantry units are causing AP damage. These guys have a massive amount of AP damage output, 70 in fact. So in some matchups or in some builds, the trolls have really a place. And I like trolls overall, but on the Greenskin roster, they are doing definitely well, and in some builds it's definitely worth to bring them to the battlefield. Especially because trolls are always quite very cost efficient. The price is just 800 credits for that performance, or for what you get for that price. This is really, really cost efficient. So let's come to the giant, the classic giant over here, anti-infantry monster. Best use is also here, fighting in the front line, not directly in the first row, but always surrounded by your own troops. However, we have a massive damage output of 600, where the weapon strength is 600. This is incredible high. Typically, of course, for giants, the amount of AP damage is 435, incredible high, nothing more to talk about. We have a very, very high leadership. The giants are, in most cases, the unit that will rout off as one of the last units from the battlefield. So the giant is there for a very, very long time, it's very steady. We have a quite low amount of armor on giants, just 30. The melee defense is also very low, but therefore we have a melee attack of 65. The speed is very low, so a giant is very, very slow. That means you have to be, you cannot move him around or run away. If he is on one spot, he will in most cases stay there. So be really careful in the beginning of the fight that your giant is really on the right spot, because you cannot run around or stuff like that. So we have many, many advantages on giants. The most advantage is of course the high damage output. It is massive, 65 melee attack, 600 weapon strength, 435 amount of AP damage, a high leadership. The he causing fear and terror. So many, many good points. Definitely negative points are the bad melee defense, the bad armor, nearly no armor, just 30. He's very, very slow, and yeah, this are the disadvantages. But in many matchups, our giants really have their place. Of course, he's a huge target. It's so easy for the Empire, for handgunners, warp lightning cannons and stuff to snipe out this large target. He is a giant. You can see him all over the place, and all your gunners can hit him very easy. For this reason, it's just in some matchups it's worth to bring a giant, but in these matchups where it is necessary or where it is good to bring a giant really, really pays off for 1600 credits. This is still cost efficient, even if the price is very high, especially against the vampire count or stuff like that. A giant can really, really pay off and cause a lot of trouble to your enemy, but it depends, as I said, on the matchup. For quite a long time I've made a special own guide about giants. You can find this in my faction guide playlist, just as a side note. So let's come to Mama Ragnarok. So if you say Papa Durtu, this is Mama Ragnarok, you can say this. A Ragnarok Spider is very, very expensive for 1900 credits, but a really cool monster. It's quite similar to the monster of the Vampire Coast, the Rotting Leviathan. Quite the same type of monster, you can say. Of course, this is a spider and the other thing is a crab, but it's the same use, you can say, on the battlefield. Or both monsters doing the same thing. You have on the back some goblins shooting missiles. The missile damage is in fact 48. What is interesting is that the missiles from the goblin on the top of the spider is causing this damage, causing poison attacks. So all units that get hit from arrows from there are poisoned. This is quite interesting. The amount of AP damage is 5. The missile damage overall is 48. So in fact, not really bad. Of course, there are just some entities on the back, so the damage output is overall not gigantic. But even though this is not bad, the missile range is 100. So in most cases, they will shoot directly on everything what's around the spider. We have a weapon strength of 380. The amount of AP damage is 280. Very, very good. The melee defense is 30, so not the best for a monster. This is not really good. The Leviathan, for example, has a weapons melee defense of 42, much higher. This is of course not so good. 30 is not the best value over here. The melee attack is therefore 45. This is very, very good. And the Ragnarok Spider is causing poison attacks. Very, very good. But probably one of the most significant points over here is that the Ragnarok Spider is massively armored. We have the highest amount of armor in the complete game to this day. It's 150. Nothing has such a high amount over here. Just the Leviathan, Rotting Leviathan. But there is no higher value than 150 actually in the game. So this is very, very high. And it's very, very difficult to pierce that armor, to go through that armor. It is very, very high, and it's a huge protection, of course, and a very significant point on the Ragnarok Spider. She causing fear and terror, of course, and is a strider, so it shows she don't get any penalties in forests or stuff like that. In some cases really good, because the speed is not really bad for a monster. I mean, we have 57. This is not really bad. This is actually quite fast. So I noticed many times that a Ragnarok Spider was faster than many heroes that I had on the battlefield and stuff. So she's in fact really fast. So we have a high damage output. She's very, very heavily armored. So nothing more to talk about. She is a huge monster, also a huge target. Warp lightning cannons, handgunners and stuff can kill her, of course. And the price is really high, 1900 credits. But maybe in some matchups, as I said, also maybe against the vampire accounts and stuff, a Ragnarok Spider can really pay off. Not in all. Be really careful from anti-large stuff, handgunners, warp lightning cannons stuff. All that stuff really hates monsters in this size. But in many other matchups, the 1900 credits can pay off. So a beautiful monster over here. So let's go to the Regiment of the Round version, the Ragnarok Queen. The Queen has much better melee stats. It's much higher. We have +9 on the melee attack, what is really much, 63 now, and also the melee defense is much increased by +11. It's now 41, and we are now in the same area like the Rotting Leviathan. What I missed to say is that the leadership of the Ragnarok Spider and the Ragnarok Queen is very, very bad. So we have just 65 on the Queen and just 55 on the Spider. So you will notice, many times on the battlefield that the Spider will rout off. But in most cases, she is still very, very healthy and she will come back. So in some cases it's not really a big disadvantage, because if not any other units will chase her out, she will come back and is very healthy, so it's just a short timeout. But of course, in general, the leadership is low, and this is not, in general, not really good. The biggest advantage on the Ragnarok Queen is that we have, of course, besides the increased melee stats, that we have this ability, maternal instinct, that will spawn some small hatchlings. In the first game it was much more efficient. Now you have just 5 times, and each time when you use it, it will take 60 seconds till you use it again. In the first game it was incredible efficiency. You can use this all over. There was no gap. You can use it many times, and it was maybe 20 seconds or 25 seconds till you can use it again. This was incredibly good, but still it is not bad. But the nerf, it get nerfed, and it is not the best now, because as I said, it will take a very long time till you can spawn another hatchlings, and this is, of course, in the past it was much better. It's much more efficient, but still she has this ability, and this is a very significant point over here. The price, the extra charge, is very high. We have 500 credits extra charge, a price of 2,400 credits now, and this is very much. In the past I always preferred the Ragnarok Queen if I put a Ragnarok Spider to the battlefield because of the hatchlings, but meanwhile the hatchling ability is, the nerf was so much, as I said, it took so long till you can use it again. So when I bring now a Ragnarok Spider to the battlefield, I take the normal one, because the extra charge is meanwhile not worth to spend. It's not worth to spend the extra charge anymore, unfortunately. But still, we have 2 beautiful monsters over here, very unique ones, even if they are quite expensive. And in some matchups it's worth to bring a Ragnarok Spider to the battlefield, but meanwhile I wouldn't spend the extra charge on the Ragnarok Queen. This is everything I can say. So this was everything from the monsters and beasts. Let's continue with the artillery. So let's come to the Goblin Rock Lobber. This Rock Lobber over here is a quite good machine for 600 credits, very efficient. We have a missile damage of 164. This is not really bad. This is in fact quite good. The amount of AP missile damage is 135. Explosive base damage is 30. This means the splash damage. And the explosive armor piercing damage, this means the AP splash damage, is 65. Also good. So very good values over here. The missile range is 400. This is very good for that price. Nothing more to talk about. It counts as expendable, so also your other units will not get a leadership drop when this thing starts to rout. So nothing more to talk about. For 600 credits, this is very efficient. The damage output is good. The missile range is very good for that price. So spend the 600 credits if you want to bring an artillery unit to the battlefield. So there is also a Regiment of Renown version available, the Hammer of Gork. This thing over here has a special ability called Blinded. If a target gets hit by the missile, the melee attack will reduce by 26, the accuracy will reduce by 40%, and the melee defense will reduce by 27. This means, of course, that especially because of the accuracy, that the best use is, of course, to shoot on enemy missile infantry and stuff, because the accuracy will also decrease. It lasts for 10 seconds, but this is not a problem because you shoot all the time. So this is a quite good ability, this blinded ability over here. The amount of missile damage is increased. We have 211 on the Hammer of Gork. The AP damage is still quite the same, 135. Explosive base damage 30, and AP explosive damage 65. So nothing more over here. We have a bit increased leadership, melee attack, melee defense, but nothing special. So for 800 credits, really cost efficient if you want to bring artillery to the battlefield. take always the Hammer of Gork, and if you want to attack another one, I would bring the Goblin Rock Lobber. So let's come to the Doom Diver Catapult, and if we compare the stats of the Goblin Rock Lobber to the Doom Diver Catapult, we have increased missile damage. The missile damage is 183, so it's plus 18 regarding the normal Goblin Rock Lobber. The price is, the extra charge is 300 credits, the price is 900 overall. This is not really cheap anymore. I would say it's more for fun purposes, because the price is quite high with 900 credits, even if the missile damage is a bit increased. The advantage over here is that you can go in the first person mode and control this flying goblin. So they fire their friends on the enemies over here, and this goblin is flying directly in the target. So you can go in the first person mode and you can drive this goblin over there, and then if you are good in that, it's much more accurate, but it's more for fun purposes. In a really competitive match, you don't have the time to shoot anything in first person mode. So I would always prefer the Goblin Rock Lobber and the Hammer of Gork. This is for the price much more efficient than the Doom Diver Catapult. As I say, for fun purposes, if you like to guide this goblin in his target, then you can bring this, but in most cases it's much more efficient to bring the other two artillery units, the Goblin Rock Lobber and the Hammer of Gork. So this was everything. I hope you liked it. I know it's a lot, but we have also here, I think the Greenskins have the most units available. We have very much a lot units on the Missile Infantry, on the Cavalry, on the Infantry. So this faction guide also lasting longer. This is the reason, because we have many units over here to talk about. But the Doom Diver was the last one, and let's continue now to the competitive build section. Welcome, brothers, to the competitive build section, and let's start over here with a quite round build. I wouldn't really say that this build is designed especially for one purpose. We have a good amount of units in here. For example, we have a front line out of Orc Boys in a mix with Savage Orcs. We have one group of Savage Orcs in the middle here, and the other groups are on the flanks to flank my enemy. Directly behind my front line, I brought two groups of Orc Biggins on each side. The Biggins always to support your Savage Orcs if it is necessary from enemy cavalry flanking, charge-ins and stuff. Also here the Orc Biggins are able to support the Savage Orcs or can support the front line over here. Directly behind my front line, I brought the more heavy stuff. We have here the Squig Herd, two groups. These guys are in general an anti-infantry unit, as I already mentioned. And in the middle, Black Orcs. Black Orcs, of course, elite infantry unit with good amount of AP damage. And this is, of course, for more heavy stuff. Also, this makes it more difficult for your opponent to get through your own infantry, however, because these guys are very heavily armored. They are immune to psychology. This is always good. So if some monsters are fighting in the front line, these guys will not rout off. So in this case, Black Orcs are always make your build at least much stronger, even if you are not facing up against Dawi or High Elves or Chaos, which are very heavily armored. Also against other factions like the Empire. So it's quite nice to bring some Black Orcs to the battlefield. Then let's come to the Orc Era Boys over here in my last line to have some shooting power. Nothing more to talk about. It's for in the most cases it's, or if your front line is under fire from enemy missiles and stuff, the Orcs will or the Greenskins will start very easy, very fast to rout, because the leadership is so low. So it's very important that you are going to snipe out enemy archers or missile infantry in general very fast, and for this reason I brought these rusty arrows over here and the Orc arrow boys. The rusty arrows, of course, especially because of the armor sundering ability, this is very good in many cases. You can shoot on enemy infantry, the armor will reduce, and then your black orcs can do the rest. So this is very good over here. Then I brought Wursak on foot, as I said in my faction guide. On foot it is more, in my opinion, he is on foot. It's more safe to bring him on foot, because as I said, on his boar, he is much more steady. He don't get a timeout, and it's very easy for a goon squad or stuff to kill him. You can see this in my faction guide where I talk about Wursak. I brought it with effigy of the Git, full of Gork. Here we go, fists of Gork, and war painting of Wursak, and frenzy is a standard ability. So the price is about 1,500 credits. Then we have 2 goblin big bosses. Unfortunately, these guys are restricted. If it would be possible to bring 3, I would have brought 4 definitely. So, but in competitive gaming, this is restricted to 2, and I always, of course, put them in the beginning near Wursak to support or to protect my hero. So last but not least, we have 2 groups of Goblin Wolf Riders. These guys are also quite they have many purposes. So even if the enemy brings some artillery to the battlefield, it isn't that bad, because as I said, these guys are so fast. You can definitely run away very easy from a lot of stuff, and you can snipe out enemy archers, missile infantry, sneak behind the front line, or do some rear charges in the front line. Of course, you have to be careful. You don't have to charge. Even a rear charge in elite infantry will kill these guys. So just to finish off some stuff, or to rout off units, to chase units that are routing, to chase them away from the battlefield. For these purposes, these guys are really perfect. But besides from that, nothing special. Let's come to the next build. Come to the next build, and this build is a build against some heavy stuff, so against heavily armored factions. And let's go directly in my front line over here. You can see I brought a lot of orc boys in combination with biggins. You always have to spread this a little bit wider, so you are not so vulnerable to spells or some stuff, and your front line is a bit wider. So like this, as I said, biggins in combination with orc boys. Biggins have, as I already told you in my faction guide, have at least a bit amount of AP damage, 13. It's not really good, but in combination with the bonus against large targets maybe, or cavalry or stuff like that, they are really good. You can also, of course, put them on the side over here to protect again your side units, your flanks, like over here. Biggins, put them on the sides. Then I brought Nesty Stalkers on each side. You can also, of course, deploy them in a vanguard position. I definitely would not bring them in directly with my main army corps. Would always bring them quite far away from the sides. They are hidden. Your opponent will not see them, and you can flank him in the last second when the units get engaged, or you directly put them in a vanguard deployment and then attack your opponent from behind or walk all the way through. It depends, but never bring them directly in your front line. I think on this side this is quite decent. Over here this gap is quite huge, so your opponent will not see them if the main army corps gets engaged, and then you can flank him over here. And these guys causing also AP damage, as I already said, and very perfect for that. Then I brought a Ragnarok Spider, but also here, like on many monsters, it depends against which faction you're going to face up. This is a large target. Handgunners, cannons, warp lightning cannons can snipe out this thing really fast. So it depends against which faction and against which builder. So it depends. And never bring the Ragnarok Spider. Just say, okay, he made a build with a Ragnarok Spider, has to be in there. It's just a huge monster, and which is causing a huge amount of AP damage. And this is very useful in many cases, but definitely not in all. So it depends. You always have to decide for yourself if you bring a huge monster to the battlefield. In many matchups, I would definitely not bring a spider or a giant and stuff like that. But in many others, I would risk it to bring it, because it can really pay off in some cases. Then we have Black Orcs over here, the more heavy stuff, of course, to pierce the armor or to go through the armor of your opponent. As I said, this is a build for against factions that are very heavily armored, typically. Then a Squig Herd, these guys causing also AP damage and have also bonus as infantry. Then I brought Azak the Slaughterer. Azak is in many cases, especially when it comes to fights against quite elite factions or stuff, quite good, because of Fate of Bunar and Spirit Leech. You have to understand that because many other heroes, lords and stuff are very strong, and Azak or also Grimgor don't have any chance against them, so it's quite good to have Spirit Leech on your side if you fight against them, against the Koliker stuff, or if you use Fate of Bunar on very elite units. This is very good and a huge advantage in my opinion for the Greenskins, because many very elite units the Greenskins are not able to kill just with the infantry power. For example, Phoenix Guards or Swordsmasters of Horde, it's not very easy to kill it for the Greenskins. In this case, it's quite good to have support from Fate of Bunar over here, even if it is not very popular. Azak is on his Wyvern over here very mobile, and his Skullmuncher, so this is also quite good. But of course, if you're facing up against factions that are typically bring some one or more flying units to the battlefield, and so we have to be really careful, of course, because you cannot support him now. It's just one unit over here, and so you have to be really careful that you're going to pick him on Skullmuncher just if you're pretty sure that you have the aerial threat. Then we have, as always, two Goblin Big Bosses. In general, you can say I don't see any matchup where I don't bring them. They are so, for 400 credits, it is so efficient that I would always bring them to the battlefield. For this case, I brought two over here. Then we have Hammer of Gork over here. You can also pick in this something else, but artillery unit against something very elite is always quite good, because the damage output against heavily armored targets, infantry unit stuff, is very good. So it's quite efficient to bring for 800 credits something like the Hammer of Gork over here. So this is, in my opinion, quite good, especially because of the blinded ability over here. This is quite decent, but you can also take for 800 credits no artillery and additional unit or stuff, of course. In my opinion, maybe some would say that there are not so many AP damage units over here. It is, in my opinion, very important that you always, even if you're facing up against very elite factions, very elite units, that you always bring at least, or take your strength, like take the strength or use the strength of the Greenskins to build a huge army. Even if my front line over here, I mean Orc Boys and stuff, will not doing much against many other units from Chaos or the High Elves or Dawi and stuff, but at least you have you overwhelm your enemy, and this is a very huge strength in my opinion of the Greenskins, and I always would use this strength and bring at least also low tier units to the battlefield, even if probably the most damage or the most kills will be done by the high tier stuff like Black Orcs. But I wouldn't mass Black Orcs or stuff and reduce my low tier units, because this is really a strength from the Greenskins to overwhelm the enemy, and you have really the control on the battlefield because you have much more units on the battlefield. And for this case I would always also bring a quite cheap front line out of Orc Boys or stuff, and increase the amount of high tier units a bit with Biggins and Black Orcs. I would always bring it like this, because you still have a quite huge amount of units, but never mass Black Orcs or stuff. This is a really bad way, because Black Orcs are definitely not the best, or they are not the best elite infantry unit in the game, and you will reduce your amount of units dramatically if you just bring Black Orcs in combination with Orc Biggins. This is not the way it should be. Always bring low tier units also in here. So let's come to a build against factions that are also typically able to bring a lot of units to the battlefield, and you can already see the most builds are quite similar, because Orc Boys are always in here. 3 groups of Orc Boys, 3 groups of Savage Orcs. It's in the most cases one of my standard picks. Savage Orcs again on the sides, 1 in the middle. Then we have Biggins also here again to support your flanks or your front line. Then I brought Crimson Killers, the Black Orcs. It's very difficult for many low tier factions or low tier units, factions that don't have too much elite units. It's very difficult to kill the Crimson Killers. Crimson Killers are very heavily armored. Also, of course, it's a lot of money, and you have to be really careful from spells and stuff. But in some cases, maybe it will pay off. But of course, you can also bring 2 normal Black Orcs and something else. It depends. Then I brought a Night Goblin Warboss to save money. It's very cheap. The price on this squig over here is just 1000 credits, what is very cheap. Yeah, I brought it with Tormentor Sword that will fix your enemy. He's stuck then, and the melee attack will reduce by 26. 2 goblin big bosses on wolves again. Then a Orc Shaman over here with the standard stuff, Foot of Gork, here we go, and so on. And then last but not least, I brought Cavalry to the battlefield, quite cheap cavalry, the Orc Boar Boys. These guys, you can deploy them for 650 credits. They cause at least AP damage, what is quite good. I really love this unit. I think this is one of the most efficient units on the cavalry roster, and especially against low tier factions, you can see you can directly mass them. So you have to be really careful from other cavalry. Be sure that your opponent will not bring any anti-large careful stuff to the battlefield, but besides from that, this is a quite good solution. Especially you have a good area, good mobility over here, can do some rear charges, and yeah, I think this is quite decent. So nothing more to talk about. Yeah, let's come to the last build. Let's come to the last build, and this is a special build against all factions that have problems to handle it against the large entities, for example, or the vampire counts. And yeah, let's begin over here again with my front line. Orc Boys in the front line, cheap and good frontline unit. On the sides again, Savage Orcs, in this case also 3 groups, 1 very wide on this, very far away on the side, 1 over here and 1 over here. Then I brought a giant directly behind a group of Biggins. Always good, this combination over here, because if you have a charge in maybe from Blood Knights or stuff, these Biggins can support your giant over here, and this is a very good combination. These guys are really well designed to fight enemy cav. And then I brought Black Orcs over here. Black Orcs are always good, especially against the vampire counts, because they are immune to psychology. We don't have to forget, nearly all units from the vampire counts causing fear and many terror, and for this reason Black Orcs are always good against the vampire counts. Also just because it's very easy also for the vampire counts to kill them. They are for the vampire counts, they are a very heavy target because they're very heavily armored and stuff. This is not so easy for the vampire counts to handle that. Then we have on the other side also a group of Biggins in combination with the Ragnarok Spider over here, so massive monster power. And then I brought Skarsnik. In this case, I'm not a big fan of Skarsnik. I think in some cases he could be quite decent, but I'm not a huge fan because he's very slow and it's a bit a problem. But in this special build, if he fits quite well in this over here, the price is quite decent, and I mean also besides the competitive point of view, he is really beautiful. This is a really unique lord. I really love it. He's anti-large, so in some cases he can also doing some great job against large targets and stuff, but also can fight in enemy infantry ranks. And last but not least, Goblin Big Bosses. So again, nothing really special over here, but as I said, a support of Biggins. The Biggins support your huge large targets, and the large targets will cause a lot of trouble, and then you have also good damage output with the Savage Orcs and stuff, the Black Orcs. So this is a quite decent build, especially against the vampire counts. But anyway, I hope you liked my competitive builds. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and yeah, let's continue now with the summary. So let's do a summary, guys. The Greenskins are in the actual metagame one of the stronger factions, but it wasn't like this in the first game. There they counted as a faction of the lower ranks. I might remember myself that the Greenskins got a major performance increasement with Mortal Empires. Since then things changed. The Greenskins count meanwhile as a top tier faction. In fact, I see them personally directly behind the Dark Elves on the second place. There are several reasons for this. The combination of the high damage output and the capability to bring large numbers to the battlefield is against many factions devastating. We have in many arms of service really good and cost efficient units, we have really good and efficient lords, a very good infantry lineup, good monsters or missile cavalry units. We have some weaknesses in other arms of service, or in general, for example in the bad access to different magical lords or the missing flying units. But they compensate many of the weaknesses with their strength. So maybe there's just one major disadvantage. Because of their low leadership, a quite low amount of armor in general, or let me say the low tier character of many units, it is very difficult to control the Greenskins. It's quite micromanagement intense, and you have to be concentrated all the time, cause units start to rout very easy, and if you do nothing about that, your complete frontline will collapse very fast, or it's very easy for your opponent to control scattered forces. And with scattered, I mean if the units fighting all over the place, the strength of the Greenskins is definitely enough to fight together, stay together in a front line. If the units broke up and fight on different places, it's in many cases for many other factions very easy to control them, and this is of course a weakness over here. Greenskin units are very vulnerable to the fear and terror mechanic. You always have to look a bit in the future which spot is maybe going to break. You cannot stay just there. You always have to move something around and stuff to change some situations. You always have to be aware what is going on the battlefield. So it's very hard to control the Greenskins. And here's the problem. In my opinion, are the Greenskins the factions that probably one of the hardest to control in the complete game, maybe the hardest. This is the reason why I would definitely say the best outcome, performance outcome is best in hands of expert players. Yes, so definitely not for beginners. Or I remember myself as I first started to play the Greenskins as a complete newbie. I get annihilated. I hated to play the Greenskins because it was so difficult. So it's definitely not for beginners, and I would say also for advanced players in some cases. It's still not the best outcome. The expert players or experienced players, however you would like to call it, use the Greenskins in my opinion in the best way, and this is of course a problem, that the Greenskins are not for everybody. But in hands of expert players, the Greenskins, as I said, are actually a top tier faction and one of the best factions. I'd see them, in fact, as I already said, on the second place directly with after the Dark Elves. But anyway, thank you for watching my faction guide. I know this is incredibly long over here, 2.5 hours about. This is the longest faction guide I've ever made, and this will be probably the longest faction guide I've ever made, because this is the faction actually with the most units on the roster. I'm not sure when the Skaven will get their Regiment of Renown. Maybe there will be a faction guide in a similar length like this, but actually I think this will be the longest. So thank you. Give me a thumb up, give me a like. I know this is impossible to watch at once, so for this reason I made this timestamp, and now this also in the description. So I hope you liked it. But yeah, nothing more to say. Have a nice evening. Let me know what you think about my faction guide over here. Give me a thumb up, give me a like, give me a sub, write something in the comments. And yeah, thank you. Have a nice evening, guys, and see you on my next faction guide. Peace out.